Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another Thyalwaysseek Q&A live stream. And today we are going to be discussing destiny and fate. And so this is something that we see discussed in pretty much every single culture, and literally every single culture discusses the subject of destiny and fate and the divine operation of destiny and fate. However, in modern times, as per usual, our white coat gods, aka scientists, have completely disregarded and dismissed and literally told us that these ideas are folly. And so I find that interesting, and I don't know if you guys find that interesting. Hello, Chris. Great to see you here, mate. I find it interesting that, back in the times where we understood all of these divine operations, we seem to live much more aligned with natural law, and we were a lot more happier, because we all knew our place in universal design and we all knew our responsibilities. And now we are just this bunch of confused, empty vessels who have no real clue about our place in universal design. We're pretty much all medicated. I mean, I think the last time I saw some of the statistics on medicated Americans, it was something like 75%. I mean, if somebody wants to go and do a Google on that and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was definitely the majority of Americans, and let's just say Westerners in general, are medicated because they just do not have the ability to exist in this artificial system. But it seems that we are supposed to believe these experts, which we have given control over our lives and over our world, are actually superior to the ancients who left us all of this knowledge and information so that we actually can understand divine operation on the material plane, and therefore we have a much more pleasant incarnation as biological, entities experiencing our life here. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying that when you actually see our state of, the state of our civilization, I really don't understand how people can look to these people as being superior as to our ancients, our ancient ancestors. So something to think about when we have all of these experts disregarding all of this knowledge, this ancient knowledge that was known around all of the different cultures. And yet we are supposed to believe that these modern age white coat gods, aka scientists, are superior in knowledge and superior intellectually to our ancient ancestors. So something to look, into a little bit more deeply, because really you just have to look, as they say, the proof is in the pudding, isn't it? I mean, just look around us at society right now. We have an increase in suicide rates amongst our children. We see that our children are, they are struggling in their schooling. We see schooling, rates are dropping, as in their results. So our children of today, of today's society, in Western culture at least, are not scoring as well in just the basics of their schooling, like reading, comprehension, mathematics. Does anybody really think that that's just accidental? Because I think if our civilization was in control, was being controlled by those who had nefarious motives, then the first thing that they would target would be our children and our ability to discern information logically and intellectually. So they're literally dumbing us down as a society. So people who look to ancient civilizations and turn their noses up at them as though they were stupid and they didn't know anything really are the ignorant ones, because you really just need to look around at our society and how we're failing on every single level to know that we do not have possession of the truth as a collective. And these people who are in control of us are not relaying these truths to us that they supposedly possess, because if that was the case, then we would be benefiting. You know, we would be actually flourishing as a species. And we're not flourishing. We're doing very badly. And we're literally killing our planet. You know, forget about this whole greenie movement, because that's just a psyop anyway. But we are literally killing our planet. I mean, our oceans are filling up with plastic, and I did actually see an article the other day, I did post it in one of our groups, that every single water sample that they took from the Antarctic, which is supposed to be the most pristine environment on our planet, was found to have fibers, microplastic fibers in the samples. So they've literally poisoned our planet, and they are doing this by design. So I just wanted to put that forward to start with, because I want people to understand that if you are looking to the experts to gauge whether you have knowledge worthy of your belief, worthy of to have your faith in, then you need to really, really reconsider that based on anecdotal evidence that is in our experience right now. Because you just have to look around at our society and our civilization and what we're doing to each other, what we're doing to our children, what we're doing to the planet, and how every single part of society is now corrupted, to just understand that we are failing, and that is because we have put failures in charge of our lives and in control of our civilization. So that is just something to think about when people believe that the experts have all the answers, because they really don't. So if we want the truth, if we want the knowledge that is going to help us have an understanding for our place in universal design, then we look back to the ancient knowledge. We look back to our ancient ancestors, because they really had no agenda, did they? I mean, when we look to the agendas of those who have control of our world now, we can see that it's all about control. It's all about power. It's all about suppressing our creativity, suppressing our intellect, you know, suppressing our freedoms. So they do have an agenda to perpetuate falsehoods, to give us untruths that are masked as knowledge and information and for our benefit. Whereas our ancient ancestors didn't. I mean, they just left us this knowledge because they wanted us to benefit from this knowledge. They wanted us to understand the truth so we wouldn't fall into the grasp of the evil that they knew was going to be our destiny. And that's a great segue, because this is where we're literally going to be looking today in the ancient knowledge, and that is about destiny and fate. And so before I start today, I just want to go over a quick summary of the group rules. There really are no group rules other than please don't chatter in the group chat. I don't mind people asking questions, but we do want those questions to be specific to the knowledge that we're discussing today. We don't want to hear things like, I heard this or I think that. So opinion isn't welcome. if you do have a statement to make about a certain subject that is discussed or something that was discussed during the live stream, we require you to show evidence. So that means to go and show us the texts, the verses from the texts, what text you were looking at, and literally back yourself with evidence for your statement. So unfortunately, we see people have opinion and they think that their opinion equates to fact because they have a fondness for the belief that they have decided to attach themselves to. And we see this with a lot of people in the New Age, unfortunately. And I recently had an interaction with someone who was following the stream in regards to diet and how diet correlates to spirituality, and that if you eat meat, then you can't be as spiritual as somebody who is a vegetarian. And this is just untrue. They tried to back up their opinion and belief with the Gnostic texts, which literally showed them the complete opposite of what they were stating, because a lot of people believe they know Gnosticism or believe they understand the Gnostic spiritual belief system, but they don't actually study the Gnostic texts. What they do is they read people who have give an opinion about the Gnostic knowledge. They read Wikipedia articles, which is just, as I've said before, completely full of bullshit, because we know that the Gnostic Christians were the last to hold out against the Catholic canon, and they paid dearly for that. And so we have lots of disinformation and misinformation about the Gnostics. And so what these people do is actually latch on to this disinformation. They don't go and study and research the texts for themselves. I would say that 95%, probably higher, of people who are interested in esoteric knowledge don't actually go and study the texts for themselves. They just find somebody who proclaims to understand the texts and understands esoteric knowledge, and then they will just accept whatever those people tell them are the truths behind the symbolism and the texts. And so this is what this person has done. The Gnostic texts do not actually state anything about not eating meat, about having a pescatarian or vegetarian diet. There were suggestions that the Gnostics were vegetarians or pescatarians, but there is nothing in the texts that actually state that. And if you look into the Gospel of Thomas, you will see that the Gospel of Thomas says that you should be more concerned with what comes out of your mouth than what goes into your mouth, because that is what will defile you. What you speak, not what you eat. So there's that, you know. So this is unfortunately what happens when people do not go and do their own research and then just decide on a belief that sounds good to them. And it usually involves shortcuts, because most people don't want to go and do the work. I mean, it's laborious. You know, I can tell you, because I've literally spent years and years and years of my life in study. I mean, that's what you have to do. But we're talking about something that is going to benefit you on a spiritual level in regards to your immortality, the immortality of your soul. Do you really think that's going to be as easy as just rocking up to, you know, a priest tell you what to believe every Sunday, or just listening to some YouTube guru tell you what to believe, or somebody who claims to channel, you know, entities, or, you know, do you really think that's all it's going to take? I mean, the road to life is narrow, and few there be that find it. And that's because few there be that actually go and do the research. And so if you want the knowledge that is discussed here to be more than just belief, you have to go and confirm it for yourself. And the only way you will do that is through study, is through looking at the scriptures, is through going and seeking out the knowledge for yourself and having a love of truth. And that's what it's going to take. And that is why the road to truth and the road to life is very, very narrow. And I'm talking, it's like a goat track. I mean, it's like this tiny little narrow track that you can barely see and barely make out, and it's so treacherous. It's full of rocks, and it's like up a really high mountain, and you just look at it and go like, yeah, I don't know if I really want to do that. You know, and there's actually going to be people on each side of the track that are going to throw rocks at you. They're going to hit you with the sticks as you walk past them. They're going to call you names. I mean, do you really want to set out on this path? Because few really have the strength and courage to traverse such a treacherous path. But that is really what it's going to take, guys. But as I say, the rewards are there for those who do. And you just have to have faith in that and faith in yourself, because that's what it's going to take. So before I begin, I just want to give a few quotes from various philosophers about those who believe they have truth, but all they really have is opinion. And so if this is you, then I would suggest you contemplate on these verses and ask yourself, do I really have the truth? Do I really want the truth? Or maybe I just want someone to prop up the beliefs that I've decided upon because I like those beliefs. You know, I want those beliefs to be true. And as I've said, normally when you have beliefs that you desperately want to hold on to and you want them to be true, it's because you want to take shortcuts and you don't really want to do the work that's involved. And those beliefs allow you to have that laziness, that spiritual laziness, because you'll actually see that a lot of these new age gurus and even a lot of the religious beliefs, modern religious beliefs, they encourage spiritual apathy. They encourage the person, the soul, just to sit there in apathy and rely on belief alone, rely on what that person is telling them to believe. So anyway, let's have a look at some of these proverbs and these verses. So the first one is an African proverb, and it says, an empty barrel makes the most noise. And so that's a good one for people that turn up to my chats on my live streams and they just chatter and chatter, or they just throw opinion out there and they will try and disparage me or discredit me. We had someone in our stream last week who was trying to put forward the disinformation that women don't have authority over the scriptures, as in women and females have no right to try and teach the subject of esoteric knowledge and spiritual knowledge because they are not worthy of it. Now, the only place you will ever find that is in the Christian Bible. And this is the modern Christian Bible, by the way, because let's really have a look at what the modern Christian Bible is, shall we? So if we head back around 1700 years ago to the Council of Nicea, probably didn't say that right, Emperor Constantine, who was neither a spiritual emperor, nor was he a Christian, he decided that he was going to bring all of the different Christian sects together and enforce one interpretation of the canon that was going to suit his political ideology and his political standing, to ensure that his political standing was not going to be threatened by all of these different interpretations of the scriptures. And there wasn't really many different interpretations of the scriptures. It just wasn't an interpretation of the scriptures that suited Constantine. And so he worked with the Catholic Church and the Catholic bishops to decide on a canon that all of the different Christian sects would adhere to under threat of death. And so they met and they called it the Council of Nicea. And they decided on what the canon would be. Now, previous to this council, God the Father was worshipped in Christianity. he was the Godhead. But after the council, and they voted on what the books that would go into the Bible would be. So there was no, spiritual revelation. There was no Holy Spirit working through these men. It was literally just men voting on what they decided the books were going to be that went into the Bible, what the Gospels they would accept went into the Bible. They decided that they were going to replace God the Father as the Godhead with Jesus. And they were going to put the Son as the Godhead, and everyone would then have to start worshipping the Son as God. And so this is what we have as the modern Christian religion right now. We have a completely bastardized version of the Bible. I mean, we don't even know whether the Gospels that were decided on at the council 1700 years ago are still the same Gospels that are in the Bible today, because the Christian church, the Catholic Church, has had so much power for so long. I mean, they were burning people at the stake, 600, 700 years ago, who would not accept their doctrine, who would not accept their canon. We know that the Cathars, the Gnostic Christians, were the last to hold up and to stand firm, and we know that they nearly slaughtered 1 million of these Christian Cathars. So we don't really know what books were initially put into the Bible and how many changes that were made, but we do know that there have been edits to this Bible over at least the last 800 years. Because, I mean, are we supposed to believe that the same people who are in power, and they have had continuous power for at least 1,000 years in their current form, we know that, and well, look, really at least 1,700 years that we know, but we can trace back at least 1,000 years that the Catholic Church have been in power through their various popes. And we are supposed to believe that these corrupted men who were burning people at the stake, who were torturing people in dungeons, can be trusted to not make any edits and any changes to the Bible to suit them and to keep them in power. And one way they did that was to disregard the female intellect, because we know that the female and male intellects must work together to unlock esoteric knowledge and divine revelation. They knew that if they removed the female understanding from the equation, then it would keep the congregation and keep the masses stupefied and only ever seeing half the picture. And so that is what they set out to do. And we know that the Gnostic Christians revered Mary Magdalene and revered the female intellect as being very important. In the Gospel of Philip, it is said that the favorite disciple of Jesus was Mary Magdalene. And this is because it was very important for Chokmah and Bainar, as it's known in Kabbalah, to work together to unlock divine revelation and divine knowledge, because both intellects are needed to understand completely the symbolism encoded within divine knowledge, within the, divine mind. So this person is absolutely deluded to think that females have no right to be discussing this knowledge, and it is very unbalanced that you have a religion where the female has been removed completely. And if you look at all of the religions, all of the religious organizations around the world as they currently stand, can you show me any that have females as pastors or clergy or, spiritual leaders? And I'm not talking about the Church of England or various sects within the corrupted Christian organization, because those women literally use Catholic canon, just like every single modern Christian does right now. They all claim that, oh no, I read the Bible because the Holy Spirit works through me. Well, isn't it coincidental that your interpretation of the Bible is exactly the same interpretation that your clergy have? And they hate it when you use the word clergy or priest. They seem to think that they're independently working through the Holy Spirit. And, well, evidence suggests completely differently, because we know that they just parrot everything that their clergy and their priests say as well, and that is not by coincidence. All right, so Idris Shah is a Sufi mystic, and he says opinion is usually something which people have when they lack comprehensive information. Again, when people haven't gone and looked at the texts, studied the scriptures, done the work, they have an opinion, and they stick to that opinion and belief because they prefer it over what they are listening to, because they don't have a full understanding of the truth. There are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true. The other is to refuse to believe what is true. That is from Søren Kierkegaard, and he was a Danish philosopher and theologian. It is useless to attempt the development of spiritual faculties while the mind, emotions, and the body are without coordination or intelligent and sufficient direction. That's Manly P. Hall, and that is right. If you are not actually applying this knowledge intellectually, spiritually, or in your physical experience, if you just listen to these streams and then go back to your day-to-day life and you make no changes whatsoever, because it takes courage to make changes to our lives. No one said being awake was going to be easy. So if that is you, then yes, you are pretty much wasting your time. Pythagoras. The first elements of wisdom, you should study to reflect and to lose your ability to chat. So if you just chatter and, share opinion with others, and I see this on a lot of New Age sites where everyone just argues about who has the right opinion and the right belief, then you really are not very wise, and you will not actually ever fully grasp truth or knowledge, because it's not about being more correct than somebody else. It's not about being right. It's not about fighting to be right and be better than others. It's about finding the truth. And so you do that to reflect on information and knowledge that is given, and then go and seek out confirmations for yourself. Chatting and empty chatting is just, I cannot think of anything more boring in my life than listening to people chatter about absolute insignificant shit. And that's literally 99% of society. They have no brain left at all. They just chatter about, reality TV, fashion, what they saw on the news, what they saw in magazines. I mean, it's just mind-numbingly boring to be in the presence of normies, as I call them, or sheeps, because they just have no independent, intellect anymore. Really, there is no independent thought. And I laugh because, you see people who, when they are talking about the mainstream news and any news, they talk about how everything's a distraction and this is just a distraction, and the news is all fake and everything's fake. But what happens when the latest distraction is played out? You can see this in Twitter more than any other social media platform. I saw this on Twitter. So all of these truthers who proclaim to have identified that mainstream media and social media is all just distraction and just there to distract us and give us, misinformation and disinformation. As soon as this next distraction comes along, what do you think all of these people are talking about? I mean, to give you an example, remember when the Chinese flew the weather balloon over the United States? What were all of these truthers talking about? Discussing, giving their opinion on. So this is just, absolutely in your face evidence that those who even think that they are not a normie and not a sheep still act like sheep. Because whenever the latest distraction is played out, they all discuss it, they all talk about it, they all share their opinion about it. And so, they're just a different degree of sheep. Really, that's all they are. They haven't actually understood that not paying attention to the distractions and the media and all of the disinformation and misinformation is literally just not talking about it at all, not paying it any attention. Post it, that's it. Maybe just bring attention to it, and then that's it. Do not continue to discuss it. But you see them discussing it for days and days and days. So they really are just another breed of sheep. All right, and the last verse, the last teaching is from Epictetus, and he said, and this is the most important one, which is why I left it last, and this is relating to this person who was having a debate with me about how diet is equating to spiritual, your spiritual nature and spirituality. It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. I mean, that pretty much says it all. And by the way, I was a vegetarian for about 6 years and a pescatarian for about 3 years. I now do eat limited protein, but I did find health-wise I suffered when I wasn't eating, enough protein. And so I can tell you, as someone who has dedicated my life to studying esoteric knowledge, that it made absolutely no difference to the diet that I was eating, to the knowledge that I was actually investigating and researching and studying. So, I'm just giving you my experience, my personal experience, so that you do know that, yes, I have been someone who did try to eat a vegetarian diet. And look, as long as the beast, as long as the animal has not suffered, was treated humanely, and you respect that that animal has given its life to sustain your life, then there is nothing wrong with eating meat. Yes, it is very hard in these times to find these types of foods that are from animals that were treated with respect. So that is something that you do need to understand when you are eating, meat and protein. However, this is how we were created, and as I said, everything by different degrees. And so animals are beneath humans. We have canine teeth. We don't have cuds. And we have canine teeth and sharp teeth because we are meant to eat meat. Okay. Right. Now that we have discussed that, let us move on to the topic for discussion today, which is destiny and fate. And as I said, all of the cultures around the world all had knowledge regarding destiny and fate and that divine operation on the ethereal and the physical plane. Now, I'm not going to discuss every single culture's information and knowledge in regards to destiny and fate. I'm just going to give you some of the main ones that I have found, and then that is up to you to go and continue on your research and studies, as you should if you are a serious student of the teachings. So to start with, let's give you some numerology in regards to destiny and fate, because we do see that the universal design is based on the language of numbers. So knowing numerology helps you understand a lot more about esoteric information and knowledge. And so the numbers that we can see equating to fate and destiny are 5, 10, and 64. So literally anything that is a denomination of the number 5. So 5, 10, 14, 20, 64, those numbers can all be broken down into 5, the numeral digit 5. So that's how numerology usually works. When we see master numbers, which is any double number, we normally reduce that down to a single digit, and we can see that numerology builds upon a single digit. And so it starts with 5, and now I've put down some of the tarot cards from the major arcana that relate to destiny in the artworks that I am showing on the stream. I've also got a Pinterest folder where I have all of the major arcana, and I do suggest that anyone interested in understanding the language of symbolism study the major arcana, because they are very comprehensive. If you want a esoteric tool that is very comprehensive in regards to archetypal symbolism and numerology, then you want to understand the major arcana of the tarot, specifically Rider-Waite, because he has literally just laid it all out for us in the major arcana and made it very easy for us to see all of the symbols relating to the numerology in each of the cards of the major arcana, and also the Kabbalah tree of life. So if you use those together, then that will help you understand numerology and symbolism a lot better. Ravel to expand, I'm not going to have to keep addressing you. I don't know why you're here if you don't want to learn. If you just want me to prop up your current beliefs, then really you are in the wrong place, okay? This last verse relates to you. It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. Look, if you already know everything, then I don't know why you're here, okay? Because you just need to go back to your New Age gurus and just continue to allow them to prop up the beliefs that you prefer. So I am going to ask that Chris deletes any of your chat if you continue to just first refer to me as she. I have a name. It's D, okay? I'm not a she. That is disrespectful to start with. And to start using all the little, university terms like postmodernism, and, it just goes to show me that you think you're an intellectual, and that has blinded you. So, really, I'm saying this in the nicest way possible, and I'm really trying to not say it in a way that I really do want to say it to you. So just really, you are being disrespectful to me because I've actually done over a decade of research that is available on my channel. I've checked your channel. I can't see any of your research, okay? And also, I find it disrespectful to everybody else who is here to actually learn, who is here to actually be a serious student of these teachings. So if you already know everything and you're just getting triggered because I'm saying things that you don't like, that just you do not want to agree with because it does not align with your preferred beliefs, then there's nothing here for you, okay? You need to move on. Go back to your New Age gurus, because I'm sure they'll tell you everything you want to hear, okay? And I'm pretty sure every single one of those New Age gurus that you take your knowledge from all have a donate button underneath their videos as well. All right, so let's go back to what's important, and that is the numerology. So 5, 10, and 64, they are our main numbers that we want to see, and we'll go into more of them, especially 64 later, because that equates to something quite important to our physical incarnations. So on the tarot cards, as I've just said, we can see the Hierophant, number 5, number 10, the Wheel of Fortune, number 14, Temperance, and number 20, Judgment. And if we look at the symbolism on all of those cards, we can see different degrees of information regarding to fate. So if we just quickly go through. So the Hierophant's in relation to the destiny and fates of the soul, and not just the soul as in you as an individual, as in you as a complete soul, because we know that every soul is created from the Creator whole, meaning two halves that create a whole soul, a female half and a male half. And after we are created whole as a male and female half, we are birthed into a physical and biological container on the physical plane to then experience life as an individual soul. But even though we have an individual path, our paths will constantly cross the paths of our other half. Our lives will always be in accordance to the divine plan for the soul as a whole soul. Now, that doesn't mean that every incarnation we will stay or be with our twin soul. Sometimes we will meet our twin soul in situations that make it literally impossible to be with our twin soul without, moving heaven and earth. We have to overcome huge challenges. Perhaps it might be in, past times that you may have had a higher position in society and your twin soul may have been in a lower position in society. And so there were boundaries there where we were forbidden to cross. And so we had to go against societal norms to be with the other half of our soul. And so these were always big challenges, and are big challenges that we will have to traverse to be with the other half of our soul. And that's, because to be with the other half of your soul, you are with the soul, the person that was made for you, and so that is a reward in itself. So of course it's not going to be easy. If you're ever in a relationship where everything just smoothly goes, everything's smooth, it's all just, you can pretty much be guaranteed that that is not your twin soul. It is not to say that the people that you end up spending your life with, marrying, having serious relationships with, feel deeply about, feel love for, are not important, because they are, and they are also an important part of your destiny, and they play an important part in your destiny, and you play an important part in their destiny as well. And so it's all about our experience here and learning. So the Hierophant is showing that the Hierophant is symbolizing God, the creator, and then the two monks that are sitting before the Hierophant are symbolizing the male and female soul. And then you see the keys that are crossed over, and that is showing the intellects of the male and female soul that must be used together to unlock divine knowledge and unlock the truth within us, within our soul, and not just about the knowledge, but about the most beneficial experience for our soul as well. But also to unlock knowledge about each of us, our true path, the best path for each of us, the design for each of us, our place, our proper position within universal design. So that is what those keys represent there. Now, also you will see that the Hierophant's foot, each foot is on the checkerboard pattern, and you'll see that a lot of the photos and the artworks that I'm showing you, especially from the Freemasons, all feature the checkerboard, but not only the Freemason, because we see that Kircher, Anathesis, whatever his bloody name is, Kircher, who was a Jesuit, by the way, and who had access to the Vatican Library. A lot of his, though, this is one now that I'm showing, is a Kircher drawing. He had the checkerboard as well. Now that is showing you fate and destiny, the paths before you. So that is what the checkerboard means. So we see that the Hierophant has his foot, each foot on the checkerboard pattern as well. So also relating to your destined paths before you in your physical incarnation. Now, your previous incarnation will also determine your future incarnations. So each of us, when we were first created, and this is what the Hierophant also relates to, is given a path for all of our incarnations. It's our destinies for each incarnation, because we're all, with fate and destiny, people argue about having free will and not having free will. How can we have free will if we're fated or we're destined to follow, a certain path? Well, that's because there are paths before us that are already destined, and we have free will to choose between those paths. But all those paths already exist, and they're all going back to the same place, judgment, at the end of the great year. And that is why the card 20 also relates to destiny and fate, because mankind as a whole all shares the same fate. And this is also the Wheel of Fortune has different degrees of meaning. It can mean the highs and lows of the individual soul, and that's why when you see the symbolism of the wheel of fortune, you will always see the divine man up the top. He's literally symbolized as either a king or a queen, or because royalty is the symbol for divinity. It's just that it's been bastardized in the lower ages, and the thrones have been stolen by the fake royals and the frauds, and then they've bastardized the meaning of royalty, and so nobody can really understand why these parasites on society, these parasites on humanity, have this position when they're really just the same as everybody else. Whereas back in the times when the gods among mankind were known, the true royals were known, their crowns were literally glowing. So they didn't need to have a fake crown put on their head, because we knew who the gods and the divine were, and so they were the royalty among mankind. So you will see that on the top of the Wheel of Fortune, you will either have a king or a queen, or you'll have the Sphinx, because the Sphinx also relates to the divine man. It is showing all the different parts, the different races, the different aspects of and the characteristics of divine man in one creature. And so then you will see that as divine man moves down the Wheel of Fortune, he becomes a commoner, and just like everybody else. So that is showing the individual soul of the divine man, and of course mortal man are an extension of divine man. So we can also see that relating to us, because everything that happens to divine man happens to mortal man to a lesser degree. So we see that the Hierophant, and he is on the screen right now, literally hands us our destinies for our entire incarnations, over every incarnation through the great year. And they are all before us. All of our destined paths are already created before us at that time, and we have the free will to choose which path to take. Sometimes we don't get that free will. Sometimes some of these paths before us we have to take because we've made a choice previously, perhaps in a different incarnation, or even in the life that we're living now, in the incarnation we're living now, that determines another path ahead of us that we have to take because we've made that decision previously. So that is what the Hierophant encompasses. I've just explained the Wheel of Fortune, which is number 10. And then we have Temperance. Now, if you look at the card Temperance, you can see that there's an angel standing there. Now, angels are symbolizing divine operation on the physical and ethereal plane, but more often the physical plane, because it's an extension of the ethereal plane. And it's showing us how our souls, the angel has 1 foot in the river and 1 foot on the material plane. So our souls are connected to our physical experience and vice versa, and how the cups are going, from one to another. It's showing our different incarnations. We're going to experience different positive and negative challenges. Well, positive isn't so much a challenge, but it can be. Sometimes you are gifted so much and you have so much abundance that it makes it easier for you to fall into vice. And then sometimes you are not experiencing a life with abundance, you have more lack, and that can either encourage you to form your character because of your challenges, because it makes you stronger, or you can fall into vice. And we see that a lot of people, not a lot, but there is an element of our society that turns to criminality, turns to crime, because it's easier just to be a criminal, to be a crim, to be a thug, than it is to actually do the work and make something of yourself, because it's a lot more challenging and harder, but the rewards come later. And you can see in the background of the Temperance card that there's a mountain, and that there's a path that goes up that mountain. At the top of the mountain there's a crown. And again, that's showing you that the narrow path, remember what I was saying before, the narrow path is the harder path, but at the top of that path are the rewards. And even though mortal man who traverses that path will not be divine will not be crowned in the way that the divine man will be crowned, because that is just his fate. His destiny is to return to his divinity because it is a part of him. He is a divine being, and that is the way he was created. But we can be Christ-like. We can be Buddha-like, God-like. We can achieve that to a lesser degree, and we can be illuminated to a lesser degree and enlightened to a lesser degree than divine. But we are absolutely capable of achieving a Christ-like nature to the highest degree of a mortal human. Absolutely. And that is what the Temperance card is showing us, that there is a path for each of us, that we were all created with that path to achieve that. It is up to us whether we want to do the work. And most of us don't. Most of us do not want to do the work. And I have to say that the Antichrists in the lower ages have made it more difficult, because they have put up these big neon signs, you know, down the false path. Here you go, easy sex, you know, go out and get shit-faced every weekend because, you know, there's all this alcohol, and hey, we're even going to flood the streets with fentanyl, and we're going to legalize cannabis and, you know, legalize marijuana. So there you go, like, just have it all. Oh, and we're going to provide you with all of this sexualized material on the internet. You know, porn is going to be free now. Hey, your children can even access porn. We're going to sexualize your children. I just saw someone post in my MeWe group, in our MeWe group, Shift of the Ages, that the UN are trying to bring in a law where children can now say that they agree to having sex with adults. I mean, that's where we're going, guys. I mean, this is where we're heading. And of course, it is a lot easier for us to fall into our carnal nature than it is to move up to our higher nature. And remember, when we're looking at our chakra system, okay, and chakra systems are really just the points in your soul where it is attached to your physical body. And so our chakra system, we have our higher chakras and our lower. Our lower chakras starting from our solar plexus, our sacral, and our root chakras. And our middle chakra is our heart chakra, which can move either way. It's like the gateway that we have to traverse. You know, we can either go to our higher chakras, or we can go into our lower chakras. And most people just fall into their carnal urges because it doesn't take any effort. It's a lot easier to just move into your carnal nature, your animalistic nature, your beastly nature. And I have done a live stream about that, in slaying the beast, and what that means, what that symbolism of slaying the dragon, slaying the beast means. And so we have to move up into our higher chakras. And that is what our tests really are. And that is what the Antichrists in these lower ages are trying to prevent you. That is why they are called the Antichrist, because each of us have a Christ within, right? We all have a divine portion within. The Bible even states this, even though modern Christians hate it when you bring this up. They hate it. Their clergy will not discuss it with them. They want to just see Jesus as a superstar. Jesus is like their pop star, their bestie. You know, if they could, they'd have posters all over their bedroom walls with Jesus. I mean, that's how they literally worship him. It's like just another celebrity, right? They're all in love with him on that level, like that fanatic fans, a Jesus fan, right? So they hate to think that someone that they have, you know, elevated to this pop star, superstar status can be also part of them, because literally they've been taught to be sinners and nothing but, you know, a little worm. From the moment you're born, you're not worthy. But the Bible teaches that we do have the Christ within us. We all do. And because we do have the Christ within us, we're all part of God the Creator. We're all a fragment of the Creator. And so each of us have a degree of divinity within us, starting from highest, which is Jesus the Christ, represented in many different cultures by many different names. He holds the divine portion to the highest degree. And then we all, through different levels, have that divine portion within us, have that Christ within us. That's why he's known as Jesus the Christ, or Christ Jesus, because the Christ is the portion of divinity within you. So when you see the word Antichrist, it doesn't mean that there's some deity with horns and a pitchfork, because that's brainwashing. Okay, that's what they want you to believe, that you're just on the lookout for this dude that's really evil looking. He's probably got horns and a pitchfork. He's hanging out in the shadows and he's just waiting to trick you into following him. But that's not how it is. The Antichrists are just around us now. They look like normal people. They are in positions of power, and they are anyone that is there to extinguish the Christ within you, to turn you from the Christ within you. So pretty much every single modern Christian is following an Antichrist, because all of their clergy are Antichrists. Any of the modern Christian clergy, and how triggered are modern Christians going to be when they hear me say this, but any of the modern Christian clergy who are encouraging their congregation to see the Son as God the Father, or praise and worship Jesus as God, are Antichrists, okay? Because Jesus is the Son. Jesus tells you he's the Son. I have done a stream about how many times Jesus tells us he is the Son. And you will never find one verse in the Bible where Jesus says that he is God the Father, he is God, worship him as God, or even worship him or praise him. There are other disciples in the Bible who say that Jesus is God and Jesus is Lord, and, look to Jesus in that way. But Jesus never says it. In fact, Jesus tells them a couple of times not to call him that. He even tells the Jews, when they are accusing him of making himself equal to God the Father, but I'm the Son. Why are you accusing me of blasphemy? I'm the Son. And this is what every single modern Christian is doing. So look, I'm not even going to go down that path again, because I've done it so many times. But yeah, the Antichrists are all around us. It's just someone who is against the Christ within you. It's no supernatural deity that's hiding in the shadows, just waiting. At the Archons, I had someone tell me that the Archons are going to get me. Again, someone who hasn't actually read the Gnostic texts and who doesn't understand that the Archons are just the Gnostic symbol for the Antichrists. The Antichrists are just the powers that be. Goliath. Okay, those who have taken control of the material plane, the devils. Okay, so it's not really that difficult to understand when you do understand esoteric knowledge. I'm just going to have a drink. Okay, and then we've got the tarot card Judgment as well, and that's pretty much self-explanatory, and that's a 20. And again, it's can be reduced, like 5 goes into 20 4 times. I mean, it's a denomination of 20. And so basically all of our paths lead to judgment. The entire fate of mankind, is shared in the fact that we all are leading to a place where our hearts are weighed. We are going to be accountable for every single action that we have done over our incarnations. And this is the part of the information and knowledge that people hate. Okay, a lot of people do not like this part of the knowledge, because anything that shows accountability or that tells you have accountability, most people do not want. They don't want accountability. They just want to be able to do what they want, believe what they want, act how they want, and there's never going to be accountability. New Agers especially. Modern Christians no longer believe in judgment, because they have been brainwashed to believe that all you have to do before you die is say you believe in Jesus. That's it. That's all it takes. You can be a complete asshole throughout your entire incarnation, your entire life. And all you have to do just before you die, your last breath, And I'd love to know how many Christians actually, how many modern Christians, are just making me laugh thinking about it. How many modern Christians on their deathbed, I mean, they're literally their last breath, and they say, I believe in Jesus. Jesus is my Lord. Jesus is my Lord and Savior. Like, that's their last breath that they take. I'd love to know that. I wonder if there's any hospice nurses out there that I can ask that question to. There was one I was following on YouTube, but yeah, I would love to know that. So yeah, that doesn't work. So they all bring up the verse about the thief on the cross with Jesus, and because the thief on the cross says that he believes in Jesus right before they are about to be crucified, Jesus says, well, you're going to heaven now. But you know, the difference is, guys, that this thief on the cross was in the presence of Jesus. So he knew who Jesus was without a doubt, didn't he? I mean, Jesus was right there. So he knew that Jesus was the Son of God. He didn't have to even really say that he believed to believe, because, well, he was right there and saw the Son of God as the Son of God. And that's the difference, because these modern Christians, they don't know who the Christ is. They don't know who Jesus is. They don't know who Mary is. They don't know who baby Jesus is. They are just worshipping idols. That's all they're doing, because they don't know what these symbols represent. So how can they know Jesus? How can they believe in Jesus when they don't even know who the Christ is? The Christ is among us right now, by the way. The Christed are among us right now. 288 divine fragments. Some may be in the ethereal plane. Some may be in the physical plane. I do think that for the last degree of the great year, that most would be on the physical plane to experience the physical challenges of being a divine soul in these times, because it's all about being chastised, the Father chastising his children, the children being humbled because the children are about to be exalted, and when we move into the golden age, they will regain their divine status in full. They will be illuminated. And so before that, they will be experiencing the physical plane in its most corrupted version. And so that is why I do believe the 288 divine fragments are among us now. They will not be in positions of power. They will be the least among us, so that we are taught a lesson as well, because we treat everyone based on appearances. If somebody seems to have a lot of money in their account, or they're in a high position in society regarding their employment, being in politics, being in a religious organization, and they're a bishop or a clergy, then the masses have been brainwashed to see them as important. I mean, and this is also part of the Antichrist's plan for us to encourage us to see everything based on appearances. And so we're going to be taught a big lesson too, because as I've said many times, Joe down the road who's mowing your lawn could very well be a divine fragment of God the Father. And so you want to make sure that you are treating every single person based on character, not based on status in society that is usually attached to materialism in these days. So you want to make sure that you're just treating everybody with respect regardless of their position in society. And you know what? That's the right thing to do as a human anyway. You know, everyone deserves to be, treated with respect, regardless on, what their status in society is, regardless on what their religion is. It's about being a person, a good person, and you should always treat people based on character, because that's what I do. I mean, if you're a piece of shit, and I don't care what religion you are, I don't care what color skin you've got, if you're a piece of shit, then I'm not going to treat you with any respect at all. But if you're a nice person, if you're a respectful person, and you're a kind-hearted person, I don't care what religion you are. I don't care if you're a biker. I don't care if you go to church or you don't go to church. I'm going to treat you based on your character. And that's what we should all be doing in these times. All right, so now if we look to the Greek, ancient Greek mythology, and you will see that I've got some artworks there of the three fates. We can see that they believed, like all the other cultures also taught, that humans have destined paths before them and just the free will to choose between those destined paths. But what the Greeks actually did was personify the different operations of fate and destiny. And so this is what the Greeks did. The ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, the ancient Norse, the ancient Hindu, the Persians, all of the cultures that had gods. Gods were twofold. Gods represented the divine fragments within humanity, so the 288 divine fragments, or they also represented divine operations. It just made it easier for them to personify the divine operations in the form of a deity. It was easier to teach others in this way. It was easier for children to understand, and it was also easier to keep this knowledge intact as we went down the ages of the Great Year. Because as we know, as we move down the Great Year cycle and we move into the Bronze and Iron Age, we start to lose access to divine knowledge. One, because we just lose access to the Christ consciousness and the Christ light. It fades because it's like the tide going in and out, but also because we have the nefarious part of civilization who work to consolidate all of that knowledge, either destroy it or lock it up under a particular building, i.e. the Vatican. Okay, and we can see that they did this a few centuries ago when they went on the Spanish Crusades in the guise of bringing Christianity to all of these different cultures that they called pagans and heathens, and all they were actually doing was stealing their knowledge and destroying what they couldn't steal and hoard for themselves underneath the Vatican. Okay, so they basically stole our knowledge, and if mankind knew what the Vatican have done to us, what the Catholic Church were responsible for. I mean, if they knew, and they will know because all truths will be known, and I do not have one doubt that the Vatican will let them know at one point in the script that we have been tricked and fooled by the Antichrists and they have all our knowledge. But if we knew, if we all knew as a collective, we could change our fate. We could change our path. We would still have to all enter into the weighing of the heart, but we would actually have a lot more of a positive experience as we move towards that time. And we would actually all go and raid the Vatican, because that is what I actually would just love to see. You know, the Vatican have to give up all of the knowledge that they have stolen and all of the artifacts that they have stolen from all the different cultures. I love that the Vatican repatriating a couple of pieces of stone back to Greece. And when you actually look at what they are repatriating, it is just laughable. It's like 3 rocks. And everyone's like, oh, they're just so good for doing that. Well, what about everything else? Isn't it funny how Westerners, you know, Western society is all being blamed now for looting and pillaging all of these civilizations, you know, and now we have to give back all of these artifacts. And the elephant is in the room and everyone just completely ignores the fact that the Vatican is absolutely full to the brim of all of the artifacts and knowledge that they have stolen from every other culture. It's just laughable. So the Greeks have personified the fates into 3 different operations. The first, and this is going to actually connect to the number 64 and our DNA, and I'll show you how that does. So the first one was Clotho. Now, isn't it interesting that Clotho resembles the etymology of the word clothes? And if you look in the scriptures and a lot of the verses, our bodies are referred to as our garments, our physical garments. And that is how we can see that this word Clotho is representing our physical garments. So Clotho was also known as spinner. And Clotho, the goddess Clotho, created the destined paths of the soul who would traverse it in its material incarnation while it was in the womb. So basically what Clotho was doing was the operation of the divine, of this soul, the divine operation of the soul being birthed into its physical material garment, and that material garment containing the destiny for that soul. So our bodies are connected to the destined paths that we have in each incarnation. And that is what Clotho represents. So it's interesting that the garment holds our destined paths when we are created in the physical form, because our DNA is connected to the number 64. And you'll also see that a chessboard, and nobody knows who invented chess, and I can tell you who invented chess and the game of chess. It was literally just symbolism disguised as a board game. It was created by the divine, okay? The divine humans created chess. That's why nobody knows where chess, the game of chess, originated. And you can see that there is a lot of symbolism in the chessboard pieces, as well as the chessboard itself being checkerboard, and also 64. Now, there are 64 different codons, possible different permutations and combinations of the codons in our DNA and RNA. So 64 is within our own DNA. And there's also 64 hexagrams on the I Ching. And the I Ching is also known as the Book of Changes. And it was said to be at least 5,000 years old and written by the legendary Emperor Fu Husi. Now, I've probably said that wrong. I'm sorry. I always do actually pronounce a lot of these words incorrectly. So please excuse that. But that Fu Husi, and it's spelled F-U and then H-S-I, and that's his name. And there's a few different spellings to that name. Well, he was a divine man, because there are depictions of him with his other half of his soul, his wife, who was known as Nuwa. Thankfully, she's got a name that's easier to pronounce. But they are pictured as serpents being entwined in each other. So half human, half serpent. And we know that the serpent relates to the firstborn divine man. We've seen that in other symbolism, tribe of Dan, Teutha de Danann. We also see it in the ancient Egyptian symbolism. So the serpent relates to the divine individual, the divine man, the firstborn divine, and we can see that the firstborn divine emperor, Fu Husi, him and his wife were depicted as half serpent, half man and woman, entwined in each other like a DNA strand. And he was said to have written the Book of Changes, the I Ching, the most ancient, one of the most ancient, if not the most ancient book in Chinese culture. And his name translates to the Great Bright One. Well, again, we know that the divine illuminate in the higher ages. And so, of course, that's why we always see those types of names and labels associated with the divine man. The illuminated one, the bright one, the one that shines, the shining one. They are all different names that you will see attributed to the divine man. And so, yes, interestingly, there are 64 hexagrams as well. So 64, again, is shown in the numerology that is equated to the divine paths, the destined paths of each human incarnation of our souls. Then we have Lachesis, and Lachesis was the goddess within the three fates. She's the second one, and she had the role of measuring the thread of human life. Her name translates to the allotter, and she would allot the portion of mortal life to each soul and determine how long a life would live and how many trials they would face in their life. And then we have Atropos. She was the third fate. Her name translates to the unturnable. That she who cannot be turned, meaning she was the one that was personifying the divine operation of when your human incarnation ended. Okay, when your physical incarnation ended. I'm seeing a lot of people having their messages retracted. Can you guys actually go back to the initial part of the video where I spoke about just chatting and just giving opinion? So if you have something to add to the stream, to the discussion, you must show the verse and the text of where you actually sourced that information. Otherwise, we see it as opinion. So I don't just want to see a hex is a curse, or this is this, or this is that. I want to actually see where you source that information from that brought you to that opinion or that belief or that statement. Okay, we are here as students of the knowledge. This isn't just a normal live stream where you get to chit and chat. We are here to learn. We are here to discover more information and knowledge. And so to do that, we have to actually provide knowledge and information so it just doesn't become white noise. Because look, if Chris wasn't here to moderate, I would just turn off chat. Okay, and that's what I'm just going to do, just turn off chat. So, you know, guys, I'm really expecting more of you for now. And I can see a lot of you have followed me for, you know, a few years. So you really should know by now that if you are going to add to the discussion, you need to actually bring knowledge with you. Right, so Anthropus was the one who cut the thread of fate. And we see, before when I was talking about the Hierophant and how the Hierophant is the two souls and their connections together throughout their incarnations, we actually do see that there is a mythology called the red string of fate. It's not only a mythology that you can find in Korea, South Korea, Vietnam, and in China and Japan, so mainly the Asian countries, but you'll also find this throughout Europe as well. Okay, you have to go look for it. A lot of these mythologies aren't well known. You have to go and do the research. But there are different mythologies and legends in regards to how two souls will share the same, like they will be attached to a string, and that string, no matter their incarnations and their different experiences in life, will always be attached. And that's how you can, it's a good way to see the different halves of the one soul. They will always be attached in some way because they are connected. Ethereally, they are connected, and this is why we see the yin-yang symbol as well, relating to the divine soul. Okay, two halves of the one soul, and each half of that soul contains a small portion of the other soul, because they are always going to be connected. So that is what the Atropos relates to. The goddess relates to that divine operation of representing the death of we all have an allotted time, okay? And I would also suggest that different paths that we have chosen determine the length of our physical incarnation as well. So we may choose a path that will result in our biological container expiring sooner than if we had chosen a different path, okay? But ultimately, we are making the choices of the paths that we take, and the end of our physical incarnation in each of our lives is personified by the goddess Anthropos. And yeah, she would also then send the soul to the underworld for judgment. And in the Greek mythology and the Greek knowledge, the underworld had different levels, and we know that too. We see that in Hermetics. We see that even in the Christian knowledge, where we have heaven and hell, and that that part in between where most souls reside. So they neither go to heaven nor hell. They just kind of, they enter into stasis. You know, there is no, I can't remember the name for it. Do you guys remember the name for that place where a soul neither goes to heaven or hell? There's that place in the middle. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. But anyway, the Greeks called it Elysium, Asphodel, or Tartarus. Okay, Elysium being the top level, Asphodel being that middle level where most souls go. Purgatory. Thank you, Atelia. Purgatory. And so most souls, the normies, okay, the ones that neither really transgress the law, you know, actively, they don't actively move to transgress and sin like murder and steal. They just kind of follow along with what they're told. They will enter into purgatory. And so they literally just are held in stasis until neither experiencing positive or really negative. No, you're right, Atelia, it is purgatory. I just couldn't think of the name. All right, so then we have a verse from Homer in the Odyssey, and he says, "He must look to meet whatever events his own fate and the stern clothes," and klothoth is actually also spelled as clothes with a K. Again, you know, this is where the word clothes comes from. Its etymology is in regards to our garments. Because remember, in the golden age, you know, when we are still innocent and we are innocent and childlike, we don't actually wear like material garments. We are all naked, okay? And there's nothing perverse about that in the golden age, because we are very innocent. Okay, we are very childlike. And just think of children, how children run around and they're naked together and they don't even care. They don't look at each other any differently. You know, they're running around together and they're having fun and they're at their most free. And this is what happens in the golden age. We don't need physical garments. And because our temperate climate in the golden age too is nothing of extremes, and you see this in a few mythologies, specifically just the one that comes to the top of my head is the one from the Persian mythology in regards to the golden age and how the temperature is just perfect, you know, and everyone is healthy, there is no sickness, there is abundance. And so clothes in their most original etymology relates to your body, your garment, your physical, biological garment. Right. I didn't finish the end of that verse. And the stern clotho twisted into his thread, and it says his thread, interestingly, and not a goddess, into his thread of destiny when he entered the world and his mother bore him. Again, talking about how our destinies are actually within our physical bodies. That's how our fates, that's how we move. And this is also where you can see that the movement of the planets and the movement of the heavens relates to our physical incarnations and our destinies as well. I don't know in a direct way how that happens, and I do know that the astrology in modern times is completely corrupted. They do not even understand what they are talking about. I listen to astrology because I understand numerology and I understand the planets at their most basic symbolism and what they represent, and I understand the numerology. So I just listen to the planets' movements. I listen to astrologers talk about the movement of the planets, and then I apply my understanding of numerology on the houses, because we know that in astrology, each of the houses of astrology have a number from 1 to 12. And so I just apply my knowledge of numerology and my knowledge of the planets and what they represent, and then I try to determine maybe what the movement of those planets means. Because sometimes, and eclipses especially, and I don't know if you guys have actually had any individual experiences, but I know I have had a lot of really important events happen in my life, and significant events happen in my life in regards to eclipses, certain eclipses. Not all of them, mainly solar eclipses. And so we can see that the major movements of the eclipses of the planet and the sun and the moon can have a direct effect to our lives, and we can see that just individually observing our own experiences, but also when we see the movements of the outer planets, because they take so long to move from house to house, they tend to have a effect on mankind as a whole as well. So there's that. But again, you know, modern astrologers these days, most of them don't even believe in a creator. I mean, if you don't even believe in a creator, and you don't even understand that you are a fragment of a creator and in fate and destiny on that level, then seriously, how can you try and, you know, decode esoteric information according to astrology? It's the same with numerology. Don't even try to go and look at all of the numerology explanations of modern new ages, because it's just absolutely crap. It's literally just what they want them to believe. It's got no basis on, you know, in anything at all, because most of them, they don't want to believe in judgment. They don't want to believe in fate and destiny in the way that it actually is. They all want to believe that they can just attract their own destinies. They can manifest their own lives in whatever way they want. And yes, we can to a certain degree, because it depends on the paths that we take. But if you think that you can just meditate what you want to come into your experience, then you're deluding yourself. And really, in these times, in these lower ages, our fates are in the hands of those who have power over us. And that is the Antichrist. So our governments have full power over us now. Anyone who believes you are still free, you are delusional or just a borderline idiot, moron, to think that you have freedom. Really? You have freedom, do you? Well, why don't you stop paying your mortgage? Why don't you stop paying your rates? Why don't you stop paying your bills? And let's see how much freedom you have. Let's see how much freedom you have if you just go and try and build a house in a national park because you want to go and live near a river. Okay? No. We have the illusion of freedom, but none of us are free, and at any time they can dictate our lives to us. And we saw them do that to us over those last few years when they played out that card. And they were just pushing and testing to see what they could get away with. And they pretty much got 80 to 90% of the society of civilians to comply. Okay, so that just goes to show you that they just didn't push the envelope a little further, because they could have. They could have literally said to us that if you don't get this shot, you are not allowed to ever come into a public place again. You are not allowed to go to your place of work. You are a threat to society. They could have easily done that. They just didn't play it out this time. But don't think that they're not going to play that card just because they've hit pause. Because as I've said, they're about to crown their false messiah on May the 6th. And things are going to escalate big time. Okay, so now that we've seen what the ancient Greeks, how they explain the operation of destiny and fate, we can look to Hermetics. Now, Hermetics actually has it in the 7 principles of universal operation, and it's called the principle of cause and effect. And it goes on to say that this is from the Kabbalion. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. So again, everything is destined, okay? And then it just goes on to explain this in a little more detail. This principle embodies the fact that there is a cause for every effect, an effect from every cause. It explains that everything happens according to law, that nothing ever merely happens, that there is no such thing as chance, that while there are various planes of cause and effect, the higher dominating the lower planes, still nothing ever entirely escapes the law. The Hermeticists understand the art and methods of rising above the ordinary plane of cause and effect to a certain degree. And by mentally rising to a higher plane, they become causes instead of effects. The masses of people are carried along obedient to environment, the wills and desires of others stronger than themselves. hereditary, suggestion, and other outward causes moving them about like pawns on the chessboard of life. But the masters, rising to the plane above, dominate their moods, characters, qualities, and powers, as well as the environment surrounding them, and become movers instead of pawns. They help to play the game of life instead of being played and moved about by other wills and environment. They use the principle instead of being its tools. The masters obey the causation of the higher planes, but they help to rule on their own plane. In this statement, there is condensed a wealth of hermetic knowledge. Let him read who can. So basically saying that in some ways we don't have complete control over our destinies and our fate, but on other parts, when we recognize the truth, we recognize our position in universal design, our part in universal design, we can actually dictate our own destinies and fates. So just me actually relaying this knowledge, I am changing destiny and fate of some people and mankind, very, very small, tiny degree, but I am playing my part to help change the destiny and fates of others in some way. You can also do this when you are relaying this information. And as I've said, it's not easy to relay this information to family and friends. They'll only ever see you as who they've known you as. And so if you do actually start relating and relaying this type of knowledge, they are just not going to take it seriously from someone that is just their sister or their brother or their colleague or their friend. So it's not going to be easy, and you will be literally throwing pearls to swine. So my experience is it's probably not even really worth the rejection and abuse and the way you're treated as someone trying to help those that you love. Unfortunately, that is just their destiny as well. Okay. However, if you see a opportunity, normally when you are online and you see a discussion between some people who are just full of disinformation and misinformation, then the onus is on you as someone who does possess this knowledge to actually put forward truth, okay, to put forward and correct them. Whether they listen to you or not really doesn't make much of a difference to your personal experience, but it may change the destiny and life of somebody else. It won't change the like, I know when I'm arguing with Christians, modern Christians on a discussion online, that it's not going to change the minds of the ones who I am arguing with, okay, because they are set firm in their belief. They're not going nowhere, okay. They've chosen that wide path to destruction, and nothing's going to turn them back. Nobody's going to turn them back at all, right? But it's the other people observing that conversation and that interaction, the ones who are sitting on the fence, who may have started to have some doubts, that you will reach, that you may just encourage to go look further into something you've said. So there's that. So yeah, we all do have our part to play, and especially if you do have possession of this knowledge and you do understand it to some level, you do actually have a responsibility when you do see the opportunity, and you will know, you will feel it in yourself, you will see this, it will happen, you'll have this interaction, you'll see it, you'll think to yourself, I should say something, but you might be someone who is not really confident in saying something. And so you'll think, oh, I'm not going to say anything. It's just easier not to say anything than actually bring myself into conflict, and people might abuse me. But you know what? That's part of your test. And as I said, nobody ever said being awake was going to be easy. And nobody ever said that having this knowledge was going to be easy. And that's why this knowledge is often symbolized by the sword, because it's double-edged. Okay? On one half, you understand the truth. You understand who you are as a soul. You know, you understand what to expect in the coming years. and to prepare yourself for it. But on the other hand, you are going to be a pariah. You are going to be ridiculed. You are going to be excluded. And you are going to walk this path alone. And so that is why it's double-edged, and that is why it's also symbolized by the snake, because the snake can either be a positive or it can turn around and bite you. So, and it can be a negative. So there's that. All right. Thoth the scribe recorded all the deeds of every soul. So now we're looking at the ancient Egyptian information and knowledge in regards to the operation of destiny and fate. Thoth the scribe recorded all the deeds of every soul, and then their hearts were weighed in the halls of Maat to determine where the soul would be placed in the ethereal plane. So this is just mirroring. Oh, good night, Lisa. This is mirroring what we just saw in the ancient Greek mythology, the ancient mythology from Greece in regards to the three fates, and where the fate would place the soul after the physical incarnation. And this is the same with Thoth. So Thoth represents the divine operation of everything that you do is recorded in your DNA, recorded in your soul, recorded in your body, recorded in your entire being. Okay? Because your soul is connected by your chakra points to your physical body as well. So all is known. Okay? Every joy that you feel, every time you feel jealous, every time you feel hate, every time you feel love, every time you feel, you know, all of those emotions, it is recorded. And this is what Thoth the scribe is representing, that divine operation. And so when you enter the halls of Maat, okay, judgment hall, halls of Maat, at the end of every incarnation, so it's a double meaning on this symbol, because we have two forms of judgment, we have two forms of death. And this is why we have the final death, the second death, we hear that talked about, the second death, that's the death after the weighing of the soul. The first death is just the death of the physical body during the incarnations over the great year. So now we're coming to the end of the great year. Guess what, guys? We're going to have to make all of those incarnations count. So the first death is nothing, okay? It's just a part of life, all right? No need to fear death. It's just all part of the operation of life, of existence, okay? Nothing to fear at all. In fact, it's just it's actually like you are having a fresh canvas within every incarnation to redo all of those challenges and tests again. Maybe you failed them last time, and so you're getting another chance to redo them. Well, guess what, guys? I'm pretty sure that this is our last chance, our last incarnation. I mean, I think we really are that close now to the end of the great year. And so this is the other symbol for what Thoth represents, and why you can see him standing next to the weighing of the heart, and where you see that the I've forgotten his name and I didn't write it down. He is the alligator god. Okay, if anybody remembers what the alligator god's name is, I can't remember off the top of my head. He's sitting there right beside the scales because he represents the abyss. And the abyss is where all souls go who don't pass the weighing of the heart at the end of the great year. So at the end of the great year, there is last judgment, great judgment, final judgment, weighing of the heart. Even the Muslims, you know, Islam has a name for it. Every single culture literally has a name for the weighing of the heart and the last judgment. And if a soul does not weigh the right weight, it cannot move through into the next great year with the 288 divine souls who will go through regardless, which is why the Antichrists hate them so much, because the divine souls, the children of God, get to traverse all the divine laws, they get to act out, they get to be evil, they get to sin, they get to do all of these things, and then they will still pass judgment. Whereas mortal man, No, it's different. Mortal man has to prove his worth to go through into the great year with the divine souls. And so this is where we see last judgment. This is what last judgment represents. And so this is what Thoth will do. What Thoth represents is that operation that will bring up all of the way that we have experienced our incarnations over the great year. And there is different ways that it's a divine operation, okay? And it is known. So some souls may be new souls. Some souls may be older souls. Some souls may have come through with the divine souls at the very beginning of this 26,000 year cycle. They may be very old souls that passed judgment last time, okay? Now, they will be weighed and measured differently to a new soul that may have only just be brought into creation, 5,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. Okay, so it's all weighed and measured based on your how long the soul has been in existence, how the soul's journey has been destined, the actual environment in which the soul is existing, because some souls who have existed in a time where they didn't have access at all to any knowledge, for whatever reason, that will be taken into account. Okay, so that is why Thoth is known as the adjudicator as well, because it's all taken into account. It's a divine operation. Probably our puny little human minds cannot fully understand how the divine mind can weigh and measure us on that level, but the divine mind is way above our understanding, and there are many divine operations that we will never understand to that full degree. And we can do the best that we can, with the information that we have now, but we are kidding ourselves if we think we are ever going to know all truths and and fully understand all of the divine operations to the highest degree. So that is what Thoth represents, and so he will represent where you will be placed on the ethereal plane, and he will also represent your soul moving into Zep Tepi, because that is what the ancient Egyptians called first time. They call it first time because it's first age, the golden age, the new age, and so that is what Thoth represents. Now, this is from an actual Egyptian text from the Kolbrin Bible. It's from the Egyptian text of the Bronze Book. Anyone new to this stream, I'll repeat that this is one resource that you really need to go and get a hard copy of. There are several versions. There are some versions of the Kolbrin Bible on the internet, but sometimes they're just the abridged version, like they're not the full version. So if you want to go and get the master edition, it's not cheap, it's about $100, but if you ever want to invest in a hard copy of a scripture, then the Kolbrin Bible. I had one of my students, and I shouldn't actually call it my student because I see myself as an eternal student as well, so it's just someone who is probably a little further I'm just a little further down the path than others. That's how I like to see it, okay? That we're all equally students of the ancient knowledge, but some of us have just been walking the path a little longer, and so we've just got a little bit more of a grasp of this knowledge. So one of the other students contacted me this week, messaged me and said how much the Kolbrin Bible has changed his life. And he has been able to let go of a lot of regrets that he had, because regrets are so soul killing. Okay, if there's one thing that we have to do is let go of regret of what we've done previously to being in possession of knowledge, of this knowledge, and having an understanding for truth. We were all ignorant once, okay? We were all there once, guys, all right? Do not look back. Only look forward, okay? No good having regret. It can just destroy the soul, all right, and prevent you from moving forward. So get rid of regret. And so I was really happy when he said that has really changed his life, and he has literally felt like he's returning to a place where he was once feeling, really good about himself before he transgressed. And we all do, okay? We all do. I've done it. You've done it. Everyone's done it. I'm not perfect. I still transgress every now and then. I'm not perfect. Nobody is. The main thing is that we try to redeem ourselves when we do transgress. We try to move back into alignment with divine law and make amends. And so if you've done something to someone, you try to make amends. You try to fix what you've done. That person may not accept your apology, may not even believe that you are sorry, even if in your heart you are sorry and you would do anything to change what you did, but at least you tried to redeem yourself and to make things and heal things and make things better and make amends to what you did. Right. Let's go on to the Gospel of Philip. All right. So the archons. Now, remember I spoke about the archons before, and that person was, acting as though they were some kind of demonic parasite that exists in the, the shadows. Now, look, I'm not saying that demons don't exist, all right, because if angels exist, and I absolutely believe that there are ethereal beings, ethereal elements to the universal design, why wouldn't they be? Everything is mirrored. So if we have divine fragments in the physical plane that work within the physical plane, we have divine fragments that work within the ethereal plane. So there is no reason to not believe that we don't have angels, angelic beings that work on the ethereal level, the ethereal plane, that help to move divine operation. I do not doubt that one bit. So if there are, negative entities in the physical, because everything's a mirror, remember, as above, so below, then we do have that in the ethereal plane as well. We have demons, okay? Now, if you're a person who is constantly transgressing divine law, and I mean you are evil, as in you actively seek to, be deceitful, rip people off, lying, cheating, stealing, killing, murdering, whatever, right, all of those vices, then you are going to attract those types of entities to your experience as well from the ethereal side. And so they may well encourage you to enact certain behaviors. Just like if you are someone who is a virtuous person, who works to be virtuous, who works to be always trying to be kind and helpful, and again, it's not easy, and we often make mistakes, but we can only keep trying to be the best version of who we can be, then you will attract positive, ethereal entities into your experience that may help you, influence you, take better choices, better paths. Sometimes when you just have that little voice in the back of your head that's, kind of pushing you towards not doing something or doing something, that could very well be you have this angelic influence in your life. And we see there are, symbols of guardian angels, and that is an element that we do attract into our experience. And so anyway, so let's go back to what the Colburn Bible, the Egyptian text of the Bronze Book, was saying, because I don't know why I even tangented off into angels and demons, but there must have been a reason. All right, so destiny may be likened. Now, I love this parable, this teaching, because it's so in your face. It's just explained in black and white right here. Destiny may be likened to a man who must travel to a distant city, whether or not he wishes to make the journey, the destination being his destiny. He may choose whether to go by way of a river or by way of a plain, whether across mountains or through forests, or on foot, on horseback, slow or fast, and whatever befalls because of his decision is fate. If a tree falls on him because he chose the forest path, it was fated. For luck is an element of fate. Destiny leaves no choice. Fate gives limited choice, which may be good or bad, but cannot be averted. What is fated must be, for at no point can there be any turning back. So literally trying to explain that, you know, we're all fated to, we all have the same fate as a collective. And really, as a collective, humanity is God in the flesh. Okay, we all make up fragments of the Creator. We're just different fragments that we can see God as a complete human body, and all of us, billions of humans, make up that body. Okay, and so that body as a whole has a destiny. It is walking its own path too. Okay, and we're all going to that same destination, which is judgment, weighing of the heart, end of the great year. Okay, where all of us are going to that same path. But on our way there's different roads and paths. You know, you can even see there's a big river and there's different like little tributaries, you know, and we go down one, but it all joins back up to the one river again at the end. Okay, and all of the paths, they all go up to the one big road. Okay, that it's all going in that one direction once again. And so that is how we can see it. We do have free will, but free will dependent upon the paths before us. So we have free will to choose what path we're going to take. And I can give you a hint. The paths worth taking, the best paths, are the harder ones. The easiest paths, they're the paths you don't want to take. Okay, the paths of ease, they're the wide path. The harder paths are the ones that look, oh, do I really want to go there? Do I really want to take that path? It does look quite difficult. I don't know. I'm not going to have a pleasant experience going down that path. I just know I'm not. But it does look like the path I have to take. It looks like the more beneficial path to my soul, but I just don't think it's going to be an easy path. That's the path you want to take. Right. So, the archons, the archons. That's why I went to the archons. That's why I went there with the angels and the demons, because the archons are just the Antichrist. Okay, but as I said, they could be very much being influenced by demonic influences on the inferior plane. Okay, because if there's angels and higher ethereal beings, then there's lower ones too, as above, so below. The archons rulers thought it was by their own power and will that they were doing what they did, but the Holy Spirit in secret was accomplishing everything through them as it wished. Truth, which existed since the beginning, is sown everywhere, and many see it being sown, but few are they who see it being reaped. So even though we look at everything right now and we go, how can God possibly have put this as part of the plan? What was he thinking? Well, you know what, to start with, I'm just going to give God some kudos here. Thank you for the 80s music. Okay? I just want to say thank you that at least we took that path, and we took the path for 80s music. But we actually chose this path, right? So the path was there. There were many different paths in the lower ages, many different paths in the Iron Age, and we chose this path as a collective. Remember how I said, you know, God's the great big man and we're all part of him, you know, like we're atoms, like you can literally see it that way, and we're all walking about, you know, as a collective down different paths as well. Yeah, well, that's the path we chose as a collective, as a mankind, okay? And that is because we have evil people in control. They're controlling the giant that's walking down, you know, that is the human race, walking down that path. So don't blame God, blame them, and blame us for allowing them to have the power to take us down this evil path that we're now on, okay? So, that's what this Gospel of Philip's saying, that even though, you know, the leaders are doing all this evil against God, you know, when they're clear felling the Amazon now, they're poisoning. I mean, you guys realize that they're doing all this by design, right? They're trying to destroy God's kingdom by design, okay? So they're they're literally poisoning our oceans on purpose. Okay, I can tell you with absolute a guarantee that they are actively tipping plastic into the oceans on purpose. And we know that the least amount of oversight in environmental damage comes from Asian countries, and that is where the most amount of plastic is said to originate. So you can pretty much guarantee that they are just tipping all of the plastic straight into the ocean. Okay, and there is actual video where you can see them just tipping truckloads of plastic into the ocean, because guess what? A couple of years ago, and they've stopped it now because it's all part of this psyop where they really care about the ocean and they care about, you know, the environment. So Western countries, part of our recycling, like obviously we're just too stupid to do our own recycling. So we sent over our plastic to these Asian countries to recycle for us, right? And we just, you know, gave it to them to do. And so it turns out that they weren't actually recycling the plastic. They were just dumping it straight into the rivers and oceans. So this is all by design, guys. This isn't an accident, okay? They are literally destroying the kingdom of God on purpose. So they're destroying the oceans with plastic. We now know that the most pristine environment on the planet, the Antarctic, and the Arctic too, I mean, both, you know, are now riddled with plastic. They're finding it within every sample of plastic, every sample of water that they take. They are finding microplastics. We know that it's in, I think about 8 of the fish that they catch, 8 out of 10 fish have it within their flesh, have microplastics within their flesh. They say that we each are ingesting about a teaspoon of microplastics every week. And so they're not only physically destroying us with toxins, I mean, we've got it all throughout our environment now. And now we're starting to see that pharmaceutical companies are doing recalls because, oh, sorry, yes, that dementia, that dementia medication that you were taking, yeah, sorry about that, but it actually gives you cancer. Oh, and there's a recall on that pharmaceutical for a cancer-fighting drug because it actually gives you cancer. It doesn't stop it. Yeah, that's not by accident either, guys. Okay, they're literally unmasking themselves now. They're slowly showing us who they really are. Okay, even the whole, you know, all of the information coming out about the clot shots now, that is all coming out by design as well. Okay, and imagine how horrible it must feel to know that you have that stuff in your body and there is nothing that you can do about it, and they start releasing all of this information about the truth of the side effects. And now they're starting to do that on mainstream TV, and that mainstream TV is all corrupted. They're just a mouthpiece for the antichrists now. That's why they're literally all the same, and they're just playing controlled opposition. So if you think, oh yeah, Fox News has the truth. No, Fox News just has a different narrative, but they're controlled opposition, so they're all just playing their part, and they're all just there to really just play out the script of the antichrists. And so, yeah, we've chosen this path, guys, okay? And now they're coming for the children, all right? So protect your children, because they're coming for them. They're trying to confuse them about their gender. They're trying to encourage them into, you know, sexual promiscuity, you know, the proud slut. You can sleep with whoever you want. You can just be like a guy and go and, you know, sleep with how many guys you want, because that's just empowerment. Because apparently in these days, empowerment for women equates to your vagina and your breasts, and how you can show them off, or how you can just allow yourselves to be used for sexual gratification by males. That's apparently empowerment. And so now this whole, you know, changing genders, they're destroying us on that level. So we can see how close we are to the tipping point, because they've managed to physically corrupt us, you know, in every area now. And now they're morally corrupting us and spiritually corrupting us. So just remember, you know, we have chosen this path. And I mean, I see so many atheists say, you know, oh, how could your God is so evil? You know, your God is so, what a horrible God you have. He gives children cancer. Does he though? Does he? Is it God giving children cancer? Or is it the fact that you microwave their food in plastic, give them their water in plastic, paint their nursery with toxic paints, clean your house with toxic bleaches and chemicals, give your children pharmaceutical medication because, maybe they are a little bit too hyperactive, or a little bit too energetic? Well, that's a sin. I mean, how dare a child sit in a classroom and fidget? Oh, we better get him on some medication. So yeah, again, it's us. We're doing this. It's not God. The destined paths were just already before us. It's just part of divine operation, and we've chosen this path. And this is another one from the Gospel of Philip. And this is about all of these people who think they're doing the work. And this is mainly modern Christians who turn up to church every Sunday, who, give tithes to the parish, who, go and do all of the things they think, all the physical, behaviors that they think that it's going to take to get that ticket to heaven. They worship Jesus, even though Jesus never asked them to worship him. Never once. They, call Jesus God, even though Jesus never asked them that. Never asked them to call him God. And it says, an ass which turns a millstone did 100 miles walking. When it was loosed, it found that it was still in the same place. There are men who make many journeys, but no progress towards any destination. When evening came upon them, they saw neither city nor village, neither human artifact nor natural phenomenon, power nor angel. In vain have the wretches laboured, because the abyss, they've gone to the abyss, they see nothing. Okay, and that's what I was talking about before with the alligator god that is sitting beside the weighing of the heart scales. He is representing the abyss, okay, and souls that go into the abyss after the great judgment, after last judgment, after weighing of the heart, are wiped from existence. The spiritual aspect of the soul, because the soul is broken up into three main pieces. There's more. The ancient Egyptians do quantify the soul in more than three, okay? They go right into it, right? But just the basics, okay? You've got the three aspects. You've got the ka, the ba, and the lib. And I don't even know if I've said that right, okay? So the lib is the heart. The ka is the soul, okay? The spiritual nature of your soul. And the ba is your consciousness, which is seated in your soul. So when a soul goes into the abyss, the consciousness is wiped from existence. The personality of the soul, okay? The identity of the soul is wiped from existence. The essence, you could even see, of the soul, what makes the soul individual, is wiped from existence. But the medium of the soul, the body of the soul that is part of the Creator, goes back to the Creator to be recreated with another consciousness implanted in that soul. And so at the end of the great year, all the souls are weighed and measured, and those that don't go into the golden age with the 288 divine souls, those that don't get on the ark, don't have a ticket on the ark, okay, because they didn't live virtuous lives, they will go into the abyss. And it probably sounds mean, okay, when you look at it at that level, but is nature mean? It's just really natural operation, and it's really just for the good of creation. And so really, when you see a collective of humans who have gone so wayward like we have now, and we're literally destroying the planet, even if we're not actively doing it ourselves individually, and we're using the right shopping bags. Do you use your recyclable shopping bags? Do you go and buy your electric car? You're doing the right thing. Well, it doesn't really matter, because those in control of our world are the ones who are destroying our world. And so we are being dragged along with them. And so we are responsible because they are representing us on that level. okay, as an entity, as a collective. We've allowed them to represent us. And so we are being judged based on them and their behaviors because they're dragging us down this path with them. And so creation isn't just looking at the individual soul and what's fair to the individual. Oh, it's not fair that that soul doesn't make it. Why? What's wrong with them? They never did anything wrong. But that's not how nature sees it. That's not how creation sees it. Creation's about abundance. Creation's about ensuring that it continues on in its most prime degree, at its most highest, purest form. And to do that, it has to take the best of us into the new cycle. That's how we see it. It's not that nature's mean. Is it mean when, and I always use the same one. I mean, you see all these turtles hatch out of their eggs and they run down. They don't run. Turtles don't run. I suppose they just move in some way down to they scatter. They scatter down to the shore, to the waves to go and grow up. And at least 3/4 of them get eaten, die, don't make it. Is that mean? Does that mean that nature does, or is it just nature? And so we have to stop seeing ourselves as special. We are a part of nature. Okay, we don't get this, this disclaimer for humans as opposed to every other part of nature that, oh no, well, natural law applies to every single creature. The laws of nature apply to all of them, but no, not humans. Humans are safe. They're in a little bubble. Nothing bad ever happens to them because they're all special. Every single one of them is special. And they all deserve to never have anything mean and bad happen to them. And it just doesn't work that way, guys. We're just not that special, okay? We're just another part of nature. The only special ones, really, are the 288 children of God. They really are the only special ones who will continue on regardless as part of this natural world in the form that it is, this created world from the divine mind. And we are just an extension of the divine. So we're not really that special. We have to prove our worth. We have to prove that we are worthy of being part of creation. And whether people think that's not fair, well, it doesn't really matter anymore. And I think the problem is that a couple of things. We've been made to think that we're special because everything that our governments do is about safety, our safety. Back in the day, kids could play out till the street lights went on, do all this stuff, and there wasn't really that much concern about it. You had basic safety, but now it's like everything is safety orientated. One, it's to basically encourage a fear of death in the collective, but two, it's to make us feel special, and social media does that too. Social media allows every person to have a platform and have attention from the collective, and so it makes everyone think they can be special, and that's just not. Oh, it could be Sobek. Yeah, I don't know. It might be. I'll have to have a look. Yeah, it could be. It could be Sobek. Yeah, but you know who I mean. Oh no, it's not Sobek because it's Amit. Amit. Ammit. Amit. Yeah. Sobek is the goddess with I think it's a crocodile head, but it's a different divine operation. It's not the one that's attached to the weighing of the heart. You'll see that they're more human form with just the head of the alligator, whereas Amit is like a dog, hunched like a dog, and then he's got the alligator head. So yeah, he's the one that I was thinking of. So he is the abyss. We don't want to go back to the abyss, guys. We want to make judgment. We want to weigh. We want to be weighed and measured, and a good way to do that, pretty much a certain way of doing that, because it's hard to be kind in these times. But if you want to pretty much guarantee that you are going to be weighed and measured and found worthy, is to seek knowledge. because the divine mind loves a soul that seeks out knowledge, because they are found worthy. And that is why this knowledge is occulted, so that only the worthy will actually search it out. Those who do the work, those who really want the truth for the love of truth. Well, God loves them. God loves those souls. They have shown themselves to be worthy of going through into the golden age with the divine. All right. Now, the Quran also talks about how everything is destined, predestined. I just wanted to show blah, blah, blah. I just wanted to show some verses from the Holy Scriptures, starting with the Quran. The keys of the unseen are in his possession. No one knows them but him. He knows everything in the land and sea. No leaf falls without his knowing it. The Quran. Are not two sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside of your Father's care. And even the very hairs on your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. Okay, and that is Matthew 10:26-31. The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes the steps. Proverbs 16:9. Whatever has come to be has already been named, and it is known that what man is, and that he is not able to dispute with one stronger than he. Eclesiastes, I knew how to say this. Okay, it's that really long Ecclesiastes 6:10. In him we have obtained an inheritance, having been predestined according to purpose of him who works all things according to the counsel of his will. Ephesians 1:11. Whatever has come to be already has been named. It is known what man is, and that he is not able to dispute one that is stronger than he. I have just repeated myself. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and the books were opened. Then another book was opened, which was the book of life, and the dead were judged by what was written in the books according to what they had done. Revelation 20:12. Now, when they say dead, it can also be symbolic for anyone who is in the flesh. When we are in the flesh, we are known to be in death, and when we are in the soul form, we are known to be in life. And so sometimes in the symbolism, when you see that it is referring to being in death, it means being in physical form, and that is what Revelations means. Yes, that we are going to be all judged for our behaviors. Okay, it's just the way it's going to be. And it doesn't mean that if you went to church every Sunday that you are going to be found worthy. It doesn't mean that at all, because there are going to be people who are weighed and measured and found to be worthy who've never stepped foot in a church, who have never listened to a sermon. Okay, there are going to be people that are found worthy who don't actually follow Christianity at all, or any religion. So it's based on character, and it's based on your worthiness as a soul according to the way that you behave towards creation and towards others. Now, there is someone that joined my stream who has since been removed, and I have seen his channel, and he is really into nature and really into helping nature, okay, which is great, because we all are guardians of nature, okay, and we have to do that. We have a responsibility to help animals, to protect animals because they are under our care, and to protect nature because it's God's kingdom. But he has this disgust for humanity, and he believes that humans are beneath animals, even children. Okay, he believes that humans are not above animals, that we are not superior, and that we are actually beneath animals, and that includes children. So he will literally be transgressing divine law, because he has not shown himself to be a protector of the most precious creation of God, which is his human, his life in human form. I mean, because we are the highest degree in the physical form. That is who humans are. Humans are the creation of the physical body, the physical entity, biological entity on the material plane in the highest degree. And children are the most purest among us. So we must protect the children because they are the closest to God, because they are the closest to the divine, because they are the purest among us. And so see how there are lots of people that think they're doing the right thing, like, I'm a vegetarian. I'm not eating meat because I care about animals. But then I'm going and supporting transgenderism. I'm going and showing up at pride marches because I think love is love and everybody can actually just be with whoever they want. Well, water is water. Do you drink from a toilet? So people think that they're doing the right thing, and that is why it says the road to hell is paved with kindness. Is paved with good intention. That's the saying. You should pay attention to a lot of these sayings. They're there for a reason. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Well, good intentions aren't enough if you do not understand divine law. And divine law doesn't care about your sensibilities. It doesn't care about offending you. It cares about protecting creation. Right. Right, now I'm just going to give you a few quotes from the philosophers. This one's from Seneca. Let fate find us ready and eager. Here is your noble spirit, the one which has put itself in the hands of fate. On the other side, we have puny, degenerate spirit which struggles and which sees nothing right in the way the universe is ordered and would rather reform the gods than reform itself. So, literally choosing its own fate because it's the easiest path is to just do what's easy, what we feel pleases us on that lower level. Remember how I was saying the lower levels, the carnal level. So the easiest stuff is always what gives us that physical pleasure, on that level. The higher self, we require more work to discover our spiritual nature and to live a virtuous life in these times, especially in these times of corrupted. I mean, we are our most corrupted that we have ever been. It doesn't get much more corrupted than this. I mean, it will get darker, don't get me wrong. We are moving into really, really dark times, and it is going to result in thermonuclear war and pretty much 3/4 of humanity being wiped from the face of the planet, and that is something that is not going to be avoided because we have placed our fates into the hands of those in control of our world now. And instead of all of us going and seeking knowledge and seeking an understanding for ourselves and for the truth so that we can empower ourselves and that we don't fear death and then they have no power over us, we've decided just to hand our minds and souls and our lives over to those who claim to be doing it for our own good. We've been fooled. Now, I've just told you before that there are 64 possible permutations of combinations of the codons in our DNA, and that 64 chess spaces on a chessboard, on a checkerboard, 64 hexagrams in an I Ching, and the reason that we see the symbolism of the checkerboard everywhere, including government buildings. You think that's random? You think Westminster Abbey, where they're about to crown the false Messiah on the 6th of May, just happens to coincidentally have a checkerboard floor? Or do you think that they're mocking us? That they're showing us that this is our destiny according to them because they're now playing our gods, because that's what it's all about. They have made themselves our gods now. They are mirroring everything that divine operation does through God the Father, through the prime creator. They're now doing it to us on the physical plane, and they're mimicking God in every way, in every divine operation. And so they have made themselves our gods. It is not coincidental that they have, checkerboard flooring at the White House, at these Capitol buildings, at Westminster Abbey, at the Vatican. And sometimes it's not always checkerboard. Sometimes it's a pattern. It's the same pattern over and over and over again. Sometimes that is the way that they will encode the same information, the same revelation of that symbolism. And you see that in the Vatican, that they have in certain areas, they've just got a different pattern. It's actually made up of triangles. Okay, so it's literally meaning the same thing, because we can make a square out of a triangle as well, can't we? All right, a few more sayings. Chance is a word void of sense. Nothing can exist without cause. That is Voltaire. Events do not just happen, but arrive by appointment. That is Epictetus. And Dante Alighieri from the Inferno. Do not be afraid of our fate. It cannot be taken from us. It is a gift. Okay, so it is a gift if you are knowledgeable. Right, now I'm just going to go into questions now, and before I answer any questions, and I don't know if we have any, I'm just going to go over a couple of the questions from last week that I didn't really explain in detail, and I felt that I should revisit. So the first one was in regards to diet, equating to spirituality. This wasn't really a question. This was one of the people who listened to previous live streams making a comment on my last video in regards to the Gnostic Christians, claiming, to start with, he claimed that the Gnostic Christians were peaceful and didn't resort to violence. Well, I proved him wrong in showing that the Cathars literally staged revolts against the Catholic Church and actually won back territory for a while. Okay, so absolutely the Gnostics were, not adverse to protecting their own, protecting their families, protecting themselves from evil using violence if so necessary. So again, these are the people that do not understand what Gnosticism is. They literally come to their own beliefs about what they want truth to be, and then they attach themselves to a certain belief system that they haven't actually studied because they've listened to a few New Age gurus, a few channels who claim to have the truth about Gnosticism, but rarely do these channels ever actually teach from the texts. They just say, oh, this is what the Gnostics did, this is what the Gnostics said, but they don't back it up with any of the actual texts. And I literally showed him that no, the Gnostics weren't, just peaceful, like, Christians believe that Jesus is just peaceful and kind. Yeah, well, really, you wait to see. You wait to see when the Christ is returned, just how peaceful the Christ is, because I can assure you there is going to be nothing peaceful about the Christ when the Christ and the Christed are returned to power, to their rightful positions, because it's going to be pretty savage, actually. Right. So this is from the Gospel of Thomas in relation to diet and spirituality. Jesus said to them, if you fast, you will bring sin upon yourselves, and if you pray, you will be condemned, and if you give to charity, you will harm your spirits. When you go into any region and walk among the people in the countryside, when people take you in, eat what they serve you. Heal the sick among them. After all, what goes into your mouth will not defile you. Rather, it's what comes out of your mouth that will defile you. Okay? So, got nothing to do with what you eat. All right? Again, I'm saying that you want to eat food, eat, an animal that has been treated with respect and, killed humanely so that it can sustain your life. And often you will see the native indigenous peoples, who have kept aligned to divine law, will often offer up a piece. I know that the Aboriginals in Australia do this, certain tribes, and I know that the Native Americans do this too. They will actually have a piece of the animal and they will offer it up to the Great Spirit, okay, and that is what the Native American Indians call God the Creator, call God the Father, the Great Spirit. They'll offer it up to the Great Spirit and then they will bury it back into the earth, okay, to be regenerated. Okay, so they are showing reverence to the animals and thanking them and gifting them. And that is right, Lisa. The darkest hour is just before dawn, and we are heading for that darkest hour. And woe to those Christians who, look forward to the return of the Christ, for that will be a day of darkness, not a day of light. It's funny how they forget these verses when they don't align with their beliefs. They all can't wait for their bestie, Jesus, to return. Can't wait for Jesus. Hallelujah. Yeah, well, feel sorry for you guys, that's for sure. Right. Now the other one was about Ophiuchus. Okay. Ophiuchus is the constellation someone asked me about, and I just kind of gave a pretty, simplified explanation in regards to the snake and the serpent. So I thought that I would just go over that symbolism. Now, looking at the positions of the constellations, they're not random, okay? Constellations are placed where they are because they were to encode knowledge that could not be changed easily by the Antichrists when they took control in the lower ages and destroyed all the knowledge. So they can change our days, they can change our months, they can change our calendar. And again, this is why I laugh when Christians bicker about Saturday and Sunday being the Sabbath, because who knows what day Saturday and Sunday are anymore. We could actually, Saturday and Sunday, back 3,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago when the scriptures were written, could now be a Tuesday and a Wednesday. Nobody knows anymore, right? Which is specifically why the Bible doesn't state a day of worship. It just says the Sabbath. And it just means a day of reverence for your Creator and to give thanks for all that He has gifted you. Okay? You're not going to go to hell if you just happen to worship God on the wrong day. Okay? Freaking idiots that believe that stuff. Right. So, yes, the symbolism, when you look at where he's placed, Ophiuchus represents the firstborn divine son, Apollo. Okay, now they say that sometimes he might represent Asclepius, but he doesn't. Some say Apollo, some say Asclepius. I say Apollo because Apollo is the firstborn divine male, and he's situated right next to Hercules, right? And Hercules symbolizes the demigod, right? Which is a degree under the two first degrees of the divine race. So the divine race have degrees within them as well. There's the gold race, the silver race, and the demigods. And the demigods are basically birthed onto the physical plane. They were created in the womb of their divine mother, who is either a silver or a gold goddess. Upon creation, the demigods were seated within the womb. This is why the Virgin Mary has an immaculate conception. And then when the gods were created on the material plane, first created, I'm talking about first creation of the divine man and women, the gods, they gave birth to the demigod on the physical plane. So the demigod is the link between the gods and mankind, because everything happens, that's why it's called the great chain of being, because it's like a link. So you've got God the Creator, and then you've got all the angelic beings, and then from them you've got the firstborn divine, which is the gold, and then the link from the gold to the firstborn demigod, like the demigods, not the firstborn, but the demigods, is the silver. So it goes down in links, in degrees, okay? So that is why Hercules, if you look at the mythology of Hercules, Hercules represents the demigod, and that makes me know that Ophiuchus is actually Apollo, positioned there above his or beside his son Hercules, who's the demigod, and he is holding the snake because, again, the snake represents the firstborn divine man, We can see even that Jesus is represented in the Bible with the snake as well, because we see that Moses lifts up the serpent in the wilderness, and even so the Son of Man may be lifted up. Okay, and whoever believeth in him should not perish and have eternal life. So the Son of Man is talking about Christ in the material form, in the physical form. Okay, and Moses lifts him up above all, okay, in the wilderness. And when he's in the wilderness, it's talking about these times, the lower ages, okay. And so that is showing us that the symbol of Jesus is actually connected to the snake, to the serpent. We see that the tribe of Dan is also connected to the serpent. We see that Jesus talks about sending out his disciples in the midst of the wolves, and tells them to be as wise as serpents, right? So as wise as divine man, okay, and firstborn divine man, because he holds the divine knowledge in the highest degree of all of the divine and all of humanity, of all of mankind. And in the actually, and so the foot of Ophiuchus steps on the Scorpio, okay, and this is how I also know that he's representing the firstborn divine man, because in the ancient Mazzaroth zodiac, Scorpio is the zodiac for the tribe of Dan. Okay, the tribe of Dan's symbol in the ancient Mazzaroth is the snake and the apple, and also the zodiac Scorpio. So when you look at all of these symbols together, the symbols tell a story to you. They are a language, okay? And so that's how we start understanding the language of symbolism. We don't ask for explanations from others if we understand the symbols for ourselves. We don't need to. We can just look at the whole picture, look at the mythology, we understand the archetypal representation of all of those symbols, and then we can just put the picture together and put the story together and put the knowledge together, because that's what it does. It's just, symbolism is just relating knowledge in a different form and in different layers as well. So the snake represents the soul, okay, the cycle of the soul, and this is in the way that the snake can shed its skin, and it's like us shedding our mortal coil. You know, every time we go into a new incarnation, we're shedding our mortal coil, and we're, you know, rebirthed into a new incarnation. So the snake can also represent the soul, and it can also represent the soul of mankind. Okay, the great year soul, like soul of mankind as a whole, and that's where we see it in the Ouroboros. Okay, when it's the snake eating its tail, we can see that on a larger level of the snake going through of the humanity, including the gods, going through the higher ages of the golden age, all the way down into the lower ages of the iron age, to be rebirthed into another golden age. Okay, and I've done a live stream about the symbol of the Ouroboros. So I would look to that live stream if you want more detailed information about that. And so, yeah, so that's pretty much what the constellation Ophiuchus represents. I would absolutely just ignore any of the mainstream beliefs and opinions that have been created around that constellation. I know they love to make that constellation very mysterious, because it is the 13th constellation that's not included with the others, and that's for a reason as well. And that's because Jesus can be seen as one of the disciples, but also outside of the disciples. So that is the reason too, that he is like the cornerstone, the foundation that everything else is built upon. And that is another reason that it can be seen, you know, the baker's dozen, 13, you know, the 13 tribes of Israel, or the 12 tribes of Israel, you know, and I've done videos on that as well. There's a reason for that, that there's both numbers can be used. All right, and then we also see the serpent on the cross symbolism. So that again, the divine on the cross, the divine souls, the firstborn divine man is often represented on the cross, Jesus. And then we see the serpent is represented on the cross, showing again a connection to the serpent and Jesus. So the serpent represents the firstborn divine man, and that is why you will just see the serpent all over every ancient culture when they are relaying information in regards to their gods and the serpents. You'll often see them related in the symbolism. And the caduceus, also known as Hermes' staff, there's a lot of disinformation about that, and it relates to the medical, and it relates to Asclepius, and it relates to... No. The caduceus is literally representing the twin souls reaching for enlightenment and basically reaching for their crown as well. Again, remember how symbols can relate to different degrees of information within the one symbol. So we can see it as the two souls, male and female souls, discovering knowledge and reaching enlightenment. We can also see it as the two divine souls, just as we saw it in the Asian symbolism regarding the emperor that created the I Ching and his wife. They are wrapped around each other, and so it's their destinies are also entwined with each other, and that is also how our DNA is formed. So that is quite interesting, that our DNA looks like it's encompassing and it's twisting around each other. And so we have these two entwining souls reaching for the crown, because at the end of the great year cycle they will be crowned and reunited with each other, once again made whole, and then know each other for who they are. All will know their other half, absolutely, and that's what that represents as well. And it also represents, as I said, the soul attaining knowledge and reaching enlightenment, and it's to do with knowledge because it's held by Hermes, and Hermes is to do with knowledge. It connects to the relating of knowledge. And of course, when we understand knowledge, the only purpose for knowledge, guys, there is no other purpose for knowledge other than understanding who you are as a soul. That's it. No other purpose other than understanding who you are as a soul and your responsibility as a soul in your physical incarnations, and that's pretty much it. And so once you've understood that to that level, to that very deep level that you have to understand it, then you have attained knowledge and enlightenment. All right, well, I'm going to leave it here, guys. I got through all my notes. It's a little over 2.5 hours, a bit of a long one today, but there was a lot to cover. And I just wanted to finish too with the whole DNA. It reminded me when I was doing the research about the DNA spiral relating to the fates of our body and our fated paths, of how when the false queen lit up that tree and there was the DNA in the tree that she lit up, literally showing us that our destinies are in their hands on that level. So there was just another added level. I already knew that it was about controlling humanity as a whole on that physical level in regards to our DNA representing the physical level of humanity, and that they were going to have full control over us on that level. But now, remembering how the 64 equates to our DNA and to our destinies, literally, I realised the deeper meaning that that bitch had when she lit up that DNA strand and that tree. So heads up, guys, because the false king, he is going to be our false messiah, and he is going to be crowned on the 6th of May. So things are going to get pretty dark after that. We've just hit pause until they can crown their messiah, their false messiah, okay? And then things are going to start escalating again. So they've just been waiting, lulling us into this sense of, security and sense of complacency, and then they're going to blindside us, because that's what they love to do. They love to blindside us. All right, that's all I had to add. I just wanted to add that little bit because I just found it pretty important when we're when we're looking to these people who have control over our lives at the moment. It's important to know their little moves and what they have planned for us. Well, guys, I'm going to leave it there. I didn't see any questions, so I'm not going to have to go through any. I saw a lot deleted, so maybe people need to think about that next time they join the chats. But I'm going to leave it here for now, guys. So have a great week, and as always, peace out.